Hey, it's Josh and Tommy back again for Watch Hill Proper. We're doing American Whiskey Show today with Jason Brauner. Jason is the co-owner and master blender of Buzzard's Roost, and he was also the co-founder of Bourbons Bistro in Louisville, Kentucky, a very famous bourbon restaurant here. It's, according to his bio, it's the first establishment to incorporate bourbon in its name in Louisville. Bourbons Bistro has played a role in the resurgence of bourbon. Since opening Bourbons Bistro in 2005, Jason has had an active single barrel program, allowing him to work side by side with many of Kentucky's leading master distillers. Through those relationships, he not only has gained a tremendous amount of knowledge, but also garnished the respect of those distillers. Jim Rutledge said, quote, "If I could pick an understudy for J.W. Rutledge Distillery when it gets going, it would be Jason. That is how much I respect his passion and his palate," end quote.
That's really
good. So the knowledge that he's gained through these distillers, combined with his overall passion for the industry, grew into a desire for Jason to go from just selling whiskey to making whiskey. So that's where we are today.
pretty high praise from Mr. Rutledge there. That's pretty cool.
It took a minute to win him over. I don't think at first he liked me. So at Bourbons, we did start a single barrel program pretty early, and we were the first bar restaurant to get a single barrel from Four Roses.
Yeah.
So he was on a lot of the picks. I was doing probably 4 a year, I think.
Wow.
And he was on a lot of the picks, and I guess the way our palates came out, it would just be the higher proof stuff.
Yeah.
And he was always, "Oh, you bourbon guys like at Bourbons," is what he's saying. Y'all like that high proof stuff. And I was like, "Well, that's where the flavor is." And I don't know. He
told me that story.
He was kind of grumpy, with
He
me.
told me that. He goes, "I did not see eye to eye with Jason at first." He goes, then it, just
Well, I think when it finally came to fruition, I took a class of his at Shelby campus.
Yeah.
And it was a adult continuing class or whatever. And I'm not very good in a classroom setting. I'm kind of popping off a little bit, class clown, whatever you say. He was always telling me, because I thought I knew it all, or I knew quite a bit more than the next person, I thought. Well, anyhow, they allowed him to do a blind tasting at the last class, and it was 10 whiskeys, and I guess they had a list of the whiskeys over here, but they were in random order, and pick, put and choose and pick which one you think is which one's yours. It's basically blind. And I was like, "Well, what do you win?" And all this stuff. He just had enough of me, right?
Yeah.
And so I finally I started sipping through them, and I did yell. I said, I know number 5 is yours. And I think from that moment that I really got his respect, because out of 10 whiskeys, I picked his blind, and
that's pretty cool.
I think at that point he might have turned a little bit.
He's like, "All right, this guy's got a decent palate."
Yeah.
Well, in the quote, it says, "That's how much I respect his passion for and his palate." So he definitely, that's pretty cool that he'd pick you as an understudy.
Yeah, Jim's a great guy, and learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
And over the years, especially at Bourbons Bistro, for all those single barrels that we picked up, I mean, back then the main guys were doing it. Bill Samuels, Jimmy Russell, Eddie Russell.
Right.
We did our first one wasn't Four Roses. It was actually Woodford Reserve. And so Chris Morris and I'm sure we were way up on the list there of being the first ones to do it. And I mean, hell, we went through the broom closet. I mean, we saw the donut jug, and we're in there in the lab, and because I don't think there was a format to it,
Right.
And so he said, "Oh, well, come over here. Let's look over here." And cool. It was really cool because it was our first barrel pick, and probably one of a handful of theirs. And there just wasn't any kind of.
They're still figuring out their single.
Yeah.
You were there at the beginning when they were figuring out their single barrel program.
Yeah, and I think that was with a lot of them. I mean, even Buffalo Trace. We picked. We've done probably. It doesn't seem like a lot now, but back then it was. We've done over 100 single barrels through the restaurant.
That's crazy.
with a lot of the big stores,
Right.
it doesn't seem like a lot, but for a
Well,
restaurant, it was.
yeah, for sure.
At that time when
Do you think that's what separated you from everybody else at the time was a single barrel program, or
I don't know. I mean, I just enjoyed drinking bourbon, and there really wasn't a lot of bourbon bars out there. I think there
It was, other than you.
I think really the main one in town was maybe Jockey Silks, which is kind of and that was just from what the Galt House wanted to do, and
Yeah.
they had a pretty good program. We went and looked and drank. They had these, the flavor wheels and some different things. So they I don't. I guess they had flights. I don't know if they even had flights then. Um,
Hmm.
but anyhow,
yeah,
I learned from everybody. I took a little bit of here, a little bit from there. And, we'd do bourbon dinners. We were one of the first kind of people to do bourbon dinners, and I'd learn from all of them. I'd listen to all their stories and kind of compile them, and then I don't know. I gained. I've sat and drank whiskey with a lot of great like older dudes.
yeah,
And I feel I'm like, to me, I was the first in it to get all what I call the older school guys.
right,
And so like I'm a bridge between the old school and new school.
right,
And I call like, I mean, we used to call Fred Freddie, and
right,
Freddie was Fred,
right,
whatever. That's somehow that switched, and I'm kind of in between their ages, and
right.
I've drank with Fred and I've drank with Freddie, and it's pretty cool. That kind of it seems like anything
Was there
after about 2010 or
was there
something.
one, or has there been one that just got you? You're like, man, I'm drinking with.
Oh well, that was everybody. I appreciate all of them, but one story, I got home really late, and I'd been drinking with Fred, and my wife, gave me a bunch of grief, and I was like, I got out the bottle of Jim Beam, and I was like, I was drinking with that guy.
Right.
Like it starts up here at Jim Beam. I was
Right.
drinking with this guy, and
Right.
I was like, that to me is history, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's cool,
Yeah.
and that kind of, I don't know whether it shut her up, but
Right.
Right.
made it seem a little bit better, but maybe not. But no, I mean, everyone in this business is just, fabulous,
Yeah.
to sit around and drink with the old school and the new school guys, which I say new school guys,
Yeah.
which I kind of try to be one of them. But I learned everything I've learned from all the older guys.
Right.
And it's not like I went to school with them or whatever, but you do listening to them talk and sitting around shooting the shit with them and drinking. You pick up on little stuff, and I think that's kind of what pushed me to Buzzard's Roost. Is that, I mean, I love the product so much, and I've tasted with all these great tasters, and tasted a lot of great whiskey. You thieve out of in
Yeah.
the warehouses. I think I've tasted some of the best whiskey out there, and I was like, well, maybe I should give this a shot.
Yeah.
We'll see what we can do.
Were you over the years? I think I know the answer to this question, or I would assume that I know the answer. Were you approached by some of these companies, since you had kind of been the OG in this? 05, that wasn't what we've been going through the last couple of years. 05 is kind of scary
Yeah.
to get into what you're doing. Had you been approached by them and say, hey, you should come on board with us and let us utilize what you're
Like as a brand ambassador, or
like
something
what
like
you're
that,
developing, or
a
even
master
getting
taster?
into blending and master
Yeah.
tasting and all that stuff that kind of became something, later on.
Right.
05, I don't know that there was a whole lot of master tasters or master
Sure.
blenders.
I don't.
Or they just let you do your thing?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
I mean, one story Bill Samuels told that I heard. He said, when you opened Bourbons, and we were trying to, like I said, bring up all ships.
Yeah.
Rising
Right.
tide brings up all ships. He said, we thought you were crazy. That it'll never work. And he tells this story about the piece of a pie. He said, we all had our small piece of the pie, and don't really take people's, like other distilleries. We don't really work on their piece of a pie. And he said, did we finally realize to grow the pie, and everybody's slice gets bigger.
Yeah.
And you don't have to kind of poach from your neighbors like they never do, because they work. I think they used to, maybe it's a little different these days, but they used to work together so much better than I think they do now, because I think a lot of
Right.
corporate stuff's taken over. And I just don't think all the personalities are always they're as friendly as it could be, but I think the corporations are I think they're losing a little bit of that camaraderie as they get bigger and all this growth and
Get bought up by an international company.
yeah.
Whatever.
Well, a lot of them are international, but they let their they let them run themselves, and now I think every year it seems like they get a little bit more corporate.
They are even chiseling just a couple of weeks ago. I mean, Suntory took the beam off. So I think you are seeing that, which is
they did.
It's strange that relationship. Now I don't know what that means. I don't know if it was just
they went from being Suntory to just Suntory.
Suntory Spirits or Suntory something. Like which that's strange.
Well, yeah, talked to a lot of people over the years, and like I said, it seems like everybody was in it because it was the whiskey business, not because it's a business that they could go into. Does that make sense? That like these guys coming out of college, guys and gals coming out of college, they're like, well, I could go do finance anywhere, but all of a sudden I'm at a whiskey company,
right?
And so there's people that don't know the history of their company that they work for,
right?
Which whiskey companies, that's part of the lure
absolutely.
of a whiskey company is to know that pre-fire Heaven Hill or whatever. There's some people that I heard a story the other day. I can't really say anything about it, but they, a person working for one of these companies showed a person that was up high in their company as far as an executive an old label, and they're like, "What is that?"
Oh no!
Oh wow!
And so I think that's what you get in kind of that. I mean, it was inevitable to happen if you're going to be successful, I guess. For the resurgence of bourbon whiskey, it's going to grow, and it's going to grow with people who just are there for the job and not for the whiskey.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of people that were there for the job and the whiskey, but more so the whiskey. What the end product is.
And that's why you started Bourbons Bistro, because you like bourbon. You wanted to have
absolutely.
You were thinking, hey, well, I guess why did you start Bourbons Bistro? Was it a restaurant? And then you're like, was the restaurant thought process first, or was the bourbon process?
So it was a restaurant. Process? So I've been in a restaurant. I started my first restaurant when I was 21.
Okay.
It was Clifton's Pizza, and it went on to, be there for 28 years, I think. I left there to start another restaurant. I was just tired of doing pizza and wanted to do more upscale dining. So me and a buddy are sitting around at a cigar shop, and we're drinking whiskey. And he's like, "Man, let's call it Bourbons." And I was like, "Okay." And so it all transpired from there. So I worked on it to get it going for 4 years. In the meantime, my wife and I go to, and I'm doing all this research and whatever, and my wife and I go to Napa Valley.
Okay.
Because I was already into wine, just, because I was a restaurant guy.
Right.
And so I knew a little bit about wine and still do, not a lot. But, we toured all the wineries and went to one, and it was just upscale one. And the girl behind the bar was very knowledgeable about wine and asked me what I did or where we were from. I said, from Kentucky. I'm in the whiskey business. And she, looked at me like she was surprised I had all my teeth. And my wife wasn't barefoot and pregnant,
right.
And so at that point I thought it kind of pissed me off a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this lady's very knowledgeable about spirits and wine and the complexities of what's in them. And then it doesn't know anything about bourbon. And so at that point, it's like, I'm out to teach the world about bourbon because there's no reason that girl shouldn't know a little bit about a great spirit. I said, it is easily as complex as wine, if not more.
Right.
And just the different nuances of it. And so it's something worth learning.
Right.
And so, we got back and, we had the business plan already done, but just kind of.
You were convinced.
Really at that point, I was convinced that there's a big gap in the spirits industry, nobody knows about this wonderful product that comes from, 90 miles from where I live.
Right.
And then obviously 95% of the world's bourbon comes from here. And so on our first t-shirts at Bourbons, it said, bringing bourbon back one sip at a time.
Nice.
And that's like, here, one sip, I convince you. One sip, I convince you. The next person, we were just out to do that. And, I mean, it helped. I mean, I don't think I'm going to be all get all, but it definitely helped get things off the ground.
For sure.
And you said Bill Samuels told you that he didn't think it would work.
Yeah.
What do you think he was talking about? Like the bourbon concept in a restaurant? Was that what he was referring to, or the high end
Maybe
combination,
that,
like a high end?
Maybe just putting them all together.
That's what I mean. Like,
because
bourbon was always bottom shelf, kind of like it wasn't a high end spirit at the time, right? I mean, not like wine. Like wine, you drink your wine with your pinky out. You know what I mean? So like, bourbon was like bottom shelf, everyday drinker type of spirit. You're gonna mix bourbon with high end food. Was that?
Well, I think I think before that, you would find that distilleries would sponsor a bar almost, and some of the laws try to permit you from doing that. But it's like, oh well, that's a Beam bar, or that's a Four Roses bar, or something. So we were for everyone. Yeah. All the old labels. They're like, well, what bourbons do you want us to bring in on the first day? I was like,
all of them.
Bring them all. I don't know how many you got. Just bring them. And I don't care because I felt if somebody came into a place called Bourbons Bistro and they said, well, my uncle used to work for J.W. Dan. Do you have Dan? No, we don't have Dan.
Right.
So bring them all. It didn't matter. I wanted to tell stories, and I knew that there were enough people around to like, oh, well, my great uncle used to work there, or my aunt used to work there, or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was just, I don't know. At first, the locals didn't care about us at all. It was all out of town people. I mean, we had a tough time building a local clientele.
That's interesting.
And it would always, if there was a convention in town, it would always be busy. And so I saw it was starting to catch on, and it, and like I said, Bill may have been right. We probably were crazy and stubborn. I probably, we were about, we've been several weekends, one weekend away from closing the doors, from 2009 crash to the pandemic to whatever, you just got to be stubborn at some point, I guess. And,
we can relate to being called crazy for doing something.
We can
kind of relate.
But it's funny, the similarities, right?
It is.
That was like, we still tell all of our reps when we get a new rep from a distributor or whatever, like, look, if it's a new SKU, send it to us.
Right.
I don't care whose it is, how good it is, what kind of following it has. If it's new, send it to us.
And they still don't realize that. Some of them, they bring us in, and I said, why don't I have this new whiskey or this new bourbon that's out? And why are you selling me what you're trying to sell me now?
Right.
Either vodka or something. It's like, just send it.
Right.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we could get into stories
we go through that
for sure.
And like I said, the industry has changed a little bit from that side of it, to where
I think that's where the competition.
Well, but we're considered, we're not high, we're elevated.
As Michael.
You got to sell this to sell that, or sell this to get that. We know that there's out there.
But so the high end food concept was just something that you were passionate about, that you wanted to go the other direction from pizza.
Yeah.
And then you're like, but I want to also educate on bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever feel like these are not going to work together? Like,
no, not really.
You feel like you could elevate the status of bourbon to match the food, convince people that we're selling, you don't need $100 bottle of wine. We have $100 bottle of bourbon that's just.
I felt that it was a, I always call it 4-star food and a 3.5-star joint. That's what I call my place. And then I wanted and it's got a great bourbon bar as a backdrop, and they operate independently, I think.
Okay.
But they also are pretty cohesive as well, to where you can build dinners around it. You can build dessert with some kind of bourbon stuff. So, I mean, I did a lot of research, and I've been cooking my whole life. I always blame that on being a latchkey kid,
Oh, for sure.
Come home, lock the door, and get something to eat after school, it's like I'm going to eat something good, you
Right.
know. And
Right.
like I said, I don't miss many meals, so
I think we can relate to the, you know, not knowing if one is going to work without the other. But when we started getting people in here who were coming for the food only, they didn't care about bourbon.
right,
They didn't really care about wine.
right.
They came for the food. And then you have the other. Well, up until not too long ago, there were people still didn't know that we were a full service kitchen, you know, but they were here for this.
Sure.
They were here for the wall. And the other people didn't even look at the wall. They were here for the food. So I like how that, and when we started seeing that, and then you get the people who are here for both, but there are certainly people who are coming for Michael's food, and
Right.
there are people who are coming for the wall. So I think we've kind of found a pretty good balance with, you know, the bigger percentages for both, but there are certainly percentages that come for one.
I just think it's an interesting contrast. When Jason started his restaurant, he was high end bourbon, just the same as we are.
Yeah.
But bourbon had a different reputation
It's all bottom
back then than today. Today, you've got $4,000 Pappy, you've got $20,000 auctions for bourbon. That's a whole different.
I mean, is there any way that you could
reputation.
remember what a pour of Pappy Van Winkle was when you opened up?
I mean, wasn't expensive. I mean, it was most expensive out there. It was maybe $20.
Yeah.
Just
That's what I mean.
I
It's
know,
like a
I know
totally
your point.
different.
I think
Yeah,
here's
it's
one.
crazy.
Here's one that sets it more into motion is that when they came out with the antique collections,
Yeah.
you know, the Stag, the
Right.
W.L. Weller with William LaRue. I think one year I got, and I felt because they couldn't give them away. I had 7 full sets
Oh man,
at a restaurant.
That's crazy.
7 full sets.
That's awesome.
Now, who in the hell is going to drink 144 proof Weller? Stag. Who's going to drink 144, 147 proof Stag? I mean,
Oh my gosh.
so I did. I ended up drinking, and I mean, there's so many stories around that. But
Right.
you know, now I might get one bottle.
Oh my
No.
gosh.
And so, but 7 sets, and I'm like, all right, we'll figure out something to do with it, you know.
We'll put it in
You're
a
gonna have to have
cocktail.
that problem.
Put it in a
again.
cocktail or
Yeah.
something.
Well, I did, and this is where this is no joke. I have this fabulous eggnog recipe,
Oh yeah.
and
Famous eggnog
I-
recipe.
the original recipe calls for pure grain alcohol, 190 proof.
Oh,
And I said,
gosh.
this would be so much better with a high proof bourbon. You know, it's not bad like it is with the pure grain in it. But I said this would be so much, the flavors would get so much better. And I was like, what is the highest proof whiskey I got on the shelf?
Boy.
Okay, Stag. So we called it Stagnog.
Stagnog.
And
Wow.
a buddy of mine went to a liquor store. You know, that maybe next year after he knew I was making Stagnog, and it was still. You know, you could still get it.
Yeah.
And he said, well, you got any Stag back there? And the guy, he said, yeah, I got to get you a bottle. And what do you got? Something special coming up? He said, nope, I'm going to make some eggnog out of it. And he said the liquor store owner looked at him like he was just a complete idiot.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm
And he
not
said,
selling you this now.
Yeah, he's like,
Yeah.
he said something to that effect.
Yeah.
That you're just, he said, well, you've never had the eggnog. and you know, and they just walked out with the bottle. So
That's awesome.
It's like the bar who does I think it's Meta, don't they do the Van Winkle
with
Jello shot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it
Hey,
wasn't
man.
like that. It wasn't like
Right.
that. It's like, man, I've got a bunch of inventory
Right.
sitting on the floor. And when you've got 130 SKUs or whatever it was in the first years,
Right.
you know, I got to move some inventory
Right.
somehow,
Well,
some
yeah.
way. And I've got these antique sets, and I can only drink so much.
Yeah.
You know, so,
Man, what a nice problem to have. Goodness.
Yeah.
those days, it's like
Those days are
all in the
long
family.
gone.
Oh my gosh, man.
Those days are gone.
So change gears a little bit. So Michael Crouch is our chef,
Yeah.
and he was also a chef at Bourbons for 7 years or so.
Yep.
Was he your
About
first?
7?
Outside of you, was he your first?
No, we went through a couple before
You did?
before we got to Michael, and then yeah, it was great.
Did you know him before?
I couldn't even tell you how we met. I swear,
is it?
it's been so long ago, and so
'Cause
many
he would have been a
whiskeys
young
ago.
pup back then.
If there's there's a lot of stories. I'm sure.
You know,
I was gonna. Well, that's where I was going. I was like, give me a Michael story. I want to.
he attempts to tell me some of those from back then. I usually stop him.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
Yeah.
all right, man, hold on. No. But I bet you have a ton.
It was pretty wild.
Anything
It was
like
good
any good
times.
stories of that might be acceptable
Yeah.
to air?
I don't know about all that. I'm sure there are. There's great stories of
Yeah.
us, just hanging out.
Yeah.
Just hanging out.
Well, I
after
mean, he
work,
was there for 7 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously it was a good match.
Yeah, we
for
had
you
a good
guys.
relationship. It
Yeah.
was good.
And
Yeah, it
he-
still is. I mean,
Yeah.
he's good.
And we
dude.
didn't steal him from you. He
No,
left.
not at all.
He left to go to 1860
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
from your place.
Sure.
Yes.
So, yeah. So he had some stints before he got here. So,
I think I know for a fact that I had Michael's food at your place. I don't know that I ever went to Bistro.
We went to 1860. Yeah, I would go there a lot.
Yeah,
well, I know we still get your eggnog over here
Yeah,
every Christmas.
That's
That's cool.
it was cool.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll let Michael tell those stories,
Oh,
and
my
then I'll
goodness.
deny him.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So a few questions here on the restaurant side. The first question I got is, what was the hardest part about being a restaurant owner? Or maybe the greatest challenge?
I think the greatest challenge at first was just getting people in the door
Yeah.
and to realize, that, and of course, I mean, the restaurant, has restaurant bar, whatever you want to call, has so many moving parts. Especially pandemic. Dude, we should have the pick of the litter, because all these
Yeah.
people dropped out of the
Right.
industry, and a lot of them didn't come back.
Yeah.
So it was like, man, after this thing's over, we're going to be able to have the best servers and the best line cooks and all that.
Yeah.
That didn't happen, and it's just, I think, getting it out and I don't know. I
Getting
mean,
it off the ground.
Was
Yeah,
the initial
getting it-
staffing a problem?
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it all was. I mean, I don't know, man. It just
Well, I mean, you've been
it
here
all
20
runs
years.
together. Like I said,
almost.
there's a lot of stubbornness that goes into that, and plus there's probably a lot of what do they call that when you
Pride.
well, that too, but I think there's more of someone that helps you along. It's a like
mentor.
not a mentor, but a enabler.
Oh,
okay.
More and more
the
or
other
less,
side of that.
yeah, more or less an enabler. I think my wife was an enabler. She's
Okay.
like, as much as you might want to quit or whatever, you need to get this done. And
Okay. That's good to hear,
she
though.
does. Sometimes you get bogged down and whatever, and fail to keep your eye on the prize. And she'd always be there to straighten me out and say, "Look, you're going to do this."
What's the longest tenured person? Do you have somebody still there from day one?
Yes.
Do you?
Yeah, Margot, our manager, has been there from day one.
Wow.
So
No way.
she could probably,
She's got stories.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, and she would tell the truth.
Oh, absolutely. Not that I wouldn't. I just wouldn't.
Maybe not on. Maybe not on YouTube.
Yeah. That's crazy. So you do have somebody from the
Yep, from
That's
day
cool.
one, and she's seen obviously the highs and lows of all of us.
Yeah.
And we've been through a lot together, and our bar manager's been there a while. I'd say 8 years. I stopped counting.
Yeah.
And our chef Jeremy McFarland,
Mhm.
he's been there. I would say at least 8 years, and so.
Right.
There's some people that come and go, and of course there's a core group that we kept during the pandemic, and we
cool.
kept them on salary and didn't know where it was going to go, and
Well, how do
we
you keep
figured
it
out.
fresh? Do you events?
Yeah, we
Special
try to do
events?
different events, and they've kind of changed from the old bourbon dinners we used to do, and I mean, everybody was. It was new to people, it's not new anymore.
Yeah.
So people were thriving to hear from Bill Samuels or from Chris Morris or whoever would come speak. So we're looking at different ways to do things. We let people come in, take over the bar, and
Yeah.
it's cool. Yeah, it's
Those are
cool,
fun.
and it just I think that as we get older, the crowds are getting younger and a little bit different.
Yeah.
To where this kind of upscale dining is definitely a niche. You see a lot of more fast casual these days,
Right.
and you see a lot of bourbon bars in the fast casual where you put your order up, not a lot of service, you
Right.
just come get your food. And I think the younger crowd is kind of about that, but
Yeah.
does that make you want to change your whole dynamic. It's like, well, you do have to evolve, but I don't think we're going to make you come get your food at the bar or
No,
something like that. And there's
Right.
and there's room for that. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously there's room for that, and people don't want to go out and uh, listen to jazz music and eat a good steak. I don't know. I mean, there's just some people that don't dig the vibe of what we dig, and
Couple menu changes throughout the
yeah,
year.
he changes it usually every quarter, something like that.
Cool.
You're gonna lighten it up for the spring and keep it heavy. And I always try to push him. I always uh, try to input some unwanted information, in there.
We do that.
Oh, we try to.
We try anyway.
That doesn't work.
You know
No,
how
not
chefs
really.
can be, and
I do. I do.
but man, he does it. He does a great job, and
That's good.
like I said, it'd be just a little cajoling one way or the other.
Yeah.
And,
I don't think I've ever. I don't get anything. I don't think I've actually had anything on the menu that I've asked for.
No, I don't think I have either. Well, no, I did. I did for about 8 days. They kept bread pudding on there, and
Yeah, that. But we did ask. For
I did. I did.
We
ask
did
for
get
bread
that
pudding,
for.
and then you can always tell if they're excited about it or not, and it's just disappears. But you know what stays on there? Whiskey for the kitchen.
Oh
At the very bottom, it's kitchen.
Buy around.
Market price always seems to stay on the menu.
Yeah, I've tried to get it on.
Well, I've tried to keep up. I used to love watching cooking shows, and I've got cookbooks and everything, and so I'm always looking for new culinary things that hey, why don't you try this and see what happens, or and like I said, I know my way around the kitchen pretty well. I would never consider myself a chef, but I can throw down when I have to.
That's cool.
So what was your favorite thing about owning a restaurant? What'd you love the most from owning?
Just get to meet people from all walks of life. I mean, and what I always said about, and maybe I'm just narrow minded about this, is like, say if you're selling cars or whatever, you don't have people flying all over the country and somebody looking, hey man, where's a good place to eat? Hey man, where's a good place to buy a car?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? There's a huge difference there.
Yeah.
So you get people that come into our city from all over for conventions and obviously for the Derby and truck shows and everything we've got going on. They're not looking for a doctor. They're not looking for where's a good gas station?
Yeah.
Where can I get a new car? But they are looking for restaurants.
Right.
And so that's kind of cool to me, to where people,
Especially if you get them that second and third time.
yeah,
You can get them in the door the first time.
right.
But if you can keep them to where the next year they're in for Derby and they're like, oh,
we've got
there.
Remember that place?
We're bringing our friends this time because that was awesome.
Absolutely,
That's
absolutely.
great.
So I enjoy meeting people
Mhm.
and the different people from all walks of life. Now, granted, like I said, car salesmen get people from all walks of life, but it's not like
No, it's different.
you're on a jet heading to Louisville. Where are we going to eat? Where are we going to hang out and drink? Where's a good bourbon bar?
Yeah.
We're starting to get people who actually come to Louisville just to eat here.
Yeah.
Like they'll figure out other stuff to do while they're here.
Sure.
But like they're coming.
You're definitely on the list.
Destination.
here.
I mean, that was something that Josh and I talked about early on. And it's like, if we were ever the destination, of course they were here for the Bourbon Trail, and now we're seeing a little bit to where they're here for us, and then they're doing the Bourbon Trail instead of being, which is cool. I mean, how flattering is that?
Yeah.
When somebody goes, "Yeah, we're in from Pennsylvania. We saw your spot on social media, and we had to come check it out." It's like, man, that's just
so that makes you feel good.
Oh, that's too cool.
And to get your ass kicked and execute and execute, to execute when
Right.
When it's hitting on all cylinders, that's the best feeling in the world.
Oh man.
When at the end of the day you got your ass kicked and 99% of them were happy.
Yeah.
And then you sit down and have a drink. And
that was a good day.
It's almost like, going over, like a war story almost.
I know it.
What'd you think when you, and I'm assuming that this happened, what'd you think about when you saw your first bad review or negative review or average review?
Well,
did it hurt?
Yeah, for sure it hurts. Hurts your pride for sure. But then what you do, I mean, with there's a lot of people that have the power of social media now.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And some people really maybe grew up that they were somewhat powerless or just different. Once you get behind social media, you can be anybody.
Yeah.
You can act like you're the best restaurant reviewer in the world. And so I take it, come to where I look at those reviews and I say, okay, I'll go to the manager and then I'll go to chef and then I'll go to the server. And I was like, what went wrong here? Is this how this is described?
Right.
Like, did this go wrong? Like they say it went wrong. And if it did, then I feel, okay, you got me. I'm at fault and I'll try to make it right. But I mean, granted, we're not perfect all the time. I mean, we drop the ball a lot, or not a lot, but we try not
Occasionally.
to. We learn from our mistakes. But I think some of these reviews you can go through, and it's like that person just wanted to just
Oh man.
just didn't. You couldn't have made it happy.
No.
You never could have made him happy. It wouldn't have went over there if I went over there and you know, coddled him and said, here, I'll give you $100 just to leave, you know, or something. You know. There's people like that, and that's unfortunate.
It is.
But you know, most of the times it's legitimate, and we find out and get to the bottom of it. We'll send them. You know, we'll try to take care of them somehow.
Mhm.
And I'll just say, okay, where did it go wrong? How can we not do this again?
Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
being there for 20 years, and having our main people in place. They know that, and a lot of things don't happen. Sometimes they do slip through the cracks, like a miscook or a recook, or you know. But it's very, knock on wood, very rare that things are catastrophically wrong, and it's like,
it's just unfortunate it happened to that person. You know, they came in, they had, you know, and it just, we always talk about it falling through the cracks. Like, there's a crack somewhere. And somebody, like, everybody's good, you know, 99% of the people that come in, but there's just that one that found that crack and just went right down that hole.
And it's the one that irks you. And it's the one that irks you. You know, well, there'd be 100 good ones and one bad one. And you're like,
that only happened to you on that day, at that moment, because of these circumstances that just happened at that moment. It was like
perfect storm.
What are you gonna do? Like, I'm sorry, here's some free stuff. Like, well, and then what else can I do?
And so I have a story about a restaurant that's out here.
Okay.
And then it's how you deal with the situation.
Right, for sure.
It's how the person deals with it. Like, are they just being outrageous or not? You know, how does the person deal with it? Right. So I'm not mentioning any names. But we went to a restaurant out here, sat at the bar overlooking the kitchen.
Okay.
Had appetizers. I ordered filet, mid-rare, filet. First filet comes. It is just well done.
Oh, no.
And I really wasn't going to say anything, but the kitchen manager was there. Hey, how's it? I said, well, I ordered mid-rare. It's well done. Oh, let me get you another one out there. So waited. That's fine. Okay, no big deal. We had a bottle of wine and some apps and things. And then the next one comes out. She comes back again. How is it? I said, it's well done. And she looked at it and it's well done.
Oh, no.
So I pushed it back. You know, whatever. She took it. And the next one came out. Says, I'm 3 fillets in, right? It comes out.
No.
And she says, how is it? She was rare. Cut it open together. It was well done. And I said, absolutely do not cook me another steak. I'm not mad at you. It's cool. Whatever. You know, she boxed them all up, take it home for me or the dog or whatever. I said, look, we had some apps. We had a bottle of wine. I had a couple bites out of each. I said, I'm fine. I said, please do not cook me another one. I'm fine with it. You know, I'm in the restaurant business and you know, just back and forth. And they ended up buying a meal and giving us a gift certificate. And, but, you know, it's how you react to things like that. Is this the biggest, is it your birthday? Is it the biggest night of your life? Whatever. Just there's somebody on the other end of it.
Yeah. Yeah. You never know.
Wow.
Yeah. No, you're right. And it's, as a restaurant owner, it's definitely, as much as I go out to eat, you definitely have a different perspective, right? I mean, you know, because like, you know when things are going wrong. Like, that server shouldn't have done this. And you see all the mistakes because you're in the business.
Yeah.
And but you just have to be like, look, you know, like, it's not that big a deal. It's just not. You know what I mean? Like, in the end, we had a good time. We were with good company, and it's all fine.
My wife was like, do you ever have a good time when you go out to eat? Because I'll be like, that person hasn't had a water for a while. I know. There's people over here, like, nobody's greeted them.
I know.
Like, they don't.
I watch every table around me, and I'm like, they got their waters real quick, and like these people sat down after or before them, and they still don't have
It
water.
just
It's
gets in
like,
your blood, and she's like, "Do you ever have a good time with the house?" I always have a good time. It's just, I just notice things.
Yeah.
I just notice what like
yeah.
somebody needs to help this table over
I
here.
know it. I know it. You almost feel like, can I get up and get you something? Because
Yeah.
like you've been sitting here a while, and nobody. Yeah, it's funny.
So you're Judy, is business partner?
Yeah.
Give me a
Judy
little.
Hollis Jones.
Heard the name.
Mhm.
Give us a couple sentences about her. I mean,
Yeah, well,
y'all known each other a long
Yeah,
time.
well, we met at the restaurant, and she had retired from corporate. She was she was actually supply chain for Wendy's International.
Okay.
So she came in, she retired. She had a consulting company and wanted to know if she could split a single barrel with me. I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? So she was going to give it to her clients. Sure, it makes a great gift.
Yeah.
And so, a couple of years went by, and she'd do maybe one once a year or something. And then this get this brilliant idea to start start a whiskey company. And I knew she was retired, and she had a lot of corporate background, and I don't have a lot of corporate background.
I hear you.
And so for a company like we want to build, probably need to start looking into that. And so just ask her if she would be interested in being a part of it. And like I said, she's retired, and she's pretty sharp.
That's cool.
Pretty sharp, and she's kind of the back of the house. I'm kind of the front of the house. She does all that corporate that needs to be
There you
done,
go. I
and
hear you.
I'm out hustling the whiskey.
Cool.
So we'll get to Buzzard Roost. I got one more question before we get
Sure.
to Buzzard Roost. On the restaurant on Bourbons Bistro,
Okay.
what would you do differently if you could go back and change one thing?
Oh, wow. What would I do differently if I could change one thing?
Or nothing?
Well, I'm sure I'll be driving home and something will come to me.
Yeah.
Like, I should.
But I mean, nothing. If nothing comes to mind, that's a good feeling. I know our answer is easy. We'd build a bigger kitchen.
Yeah,
for sure. For sure.
We didn't realize what we were getting into because we weren't really going to have food. We were just going to do this bourbon bar.
I remember looking at
and
plans, and I was like, that might be an issue.
Yeah. And so, we'd have less. We probably wouldn't have a couple dozen seats that we have, but we'd have had a bigger kitchen and been a little bit.
I think a big
that kind
kitchen
of thing,
ours is pretty small too. And I mean, if that's what
anything, whether the design or
kitchen.
maybe a philosophy that you had in the beginning that maybe you course corrected down the road or anything.
Well, like I said, hindsight being what it is, I don't know. I mean, I really can't think of something. That I would change. Major, just maybe take the time to enjoy it more.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're running around day to day and sit and smell the roses.
Yeah.
I think that at some point I've got some good stories for sure to tell, and a lot of great times with a lot of great people. But I think that could have been more to kind of enjoy it more.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
Now your event center upstairs, you didn't have that in the beginning.
That's correct. The gentleman owned the building. He actually lived up there.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of a bad idea from the get go. I wouldn't want to live over a bar.
They do it all the time out here. We got people right up there.
Not unless I was younger.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were always set to when he moved out to take over that space.
Oh, okay.
And then we eventually bought the building, which was a step that we had planned out. It was the third phase or whatever. The upstairs and then buying the building.
Yeah.
And so
cool.
That kind of worked out.
What's to stay pretty busy? Your events, you keep plenty of events up there.
Definitely.
I've been to several.
Yeah. We did the after party of the Jamar's thing was down there a couple years. Kobe was down there a couple years ago.
Yeah, we do a lot of rehearsal dinners.
Actually, I had my engineering company's Christmas dinner there one year.
Good Christmas.
It's a cool spot.
Yeah,
it's a good. I mean, it serves its purpose for sure.
Yeah, it's a good venue. So Buzzard's Roost. So you're doing all these single barrels, and you're like, hey, my palate's good enough. Let's try this.
I'd been
Try my
learning.
hand at a whiskey company.
Yeah.
So we're sipping on Buzzard Roost today. We've got the single barrel
The French oak.
toasted French oak,
Mm-hmm.
straight
And
bourbon.
the empty glass.
So I think I know it.
The empty glass nose is
Isn't
amazing.
that great? I'd walk around the restaurant doing that. People thought it was crazy.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's where all that
we've become big
arrogance-
empty glass
Oh, yeah.
nose
yeah.
fans, man. Brings out a whole different.
So how's it going?
It's going well. Well, I always, tell people we started with 3 barrels. We did a very small batch, which was 2 barrels, and we did a single barrel, which was 1. And we started at Neely Family Distillery. Royce helped me out quite a bit.
Okay.
Did all of our hand bottling, blending up there.
Good guy.
Yeah, and then we moved to KAD,
Right.
Kentucky Artisan Distillery, and those people out there love them to death. And then kind of outgrew that. Now we're at Bardstown Bourbon Company
Okay.
doing all of our contract work. So, we source our whiskey like a lot of companies do. We did try to get a distillery off the ground, and that just didn't really work out for us. But we had picked out a farm and had it surveyed and all this,
Wow.
I wanted to build a big, contract work,
Yeah.
36-inch column still and all that. Anyhow, that just kind of didn't pan out. So that's when we started sourcing whiskey. And I met Andrew Webrink, who works with Independent Stave Company. He's like the head of wood research down there. And he was doing some cool experiments with double barreling. And so even though it doesn't say it on our label, which we may do that, a lot of people don't realize that all of our stuff is double barreled.
Yeah.
So what we do is we'll buy aged whiskey from MGP. We ship it to Bardstown Bourbon Company. They rebarrel everything into our proprietary barrels. It'll age there for another 2 months to a year or so. We're letting some even go longer than a year, and then we'll bottle it and sell it. We've grown to be, I think we're in 23 states now. We just
Nice.
added a couple, waiting for Pennsylvania to sign on. So it may be 25, 27 by the end of the year. We're also in Alberta, Canada. So we're out there hitting it hard.
you
I've been doing a lot of traveling, trying to support the brand and coming back and do all of our blending and some of the marketing we're trying to do. But yeah, man, it's just it's busy, and like I said, maybe I'll try to take my own advice and enjoy the ride. But there's a lot of work to be done. A lot of work to be done. We've
got the place downtown.
Yeah, we opened a kind of a. So we hit the market in 2019 as a brand. Last year we opened a place downtown, a micro distillery.
Right.
We do some doubling down there, so we've
you?
got a doubler that makes us we do the secondary
Cuts.
distillation.
Yeah.
Is that the Buzz cauldron?
Yeah, it's a 75-gallon doubler.
Yeah.
And
I love the name.
that actually makes us a distiller. Even though we don't do the first distillation and don't ferment there, but eventually we can easily add that stuff to this doubler. But we take new make our first run from Green River. Since Bardstown Bourbon Company owns Green River, we take some first run from them and clean it up in our still. And then it goes into our proprietary barrels.
That's cool.
That is cool.
So with the secondary aging, we've got our main product are getting aged in our barrels.
Mm-hmm.
But so I've got 17 proprietary barrels that we've developed with the help of Independent Stave Company.
Right.
And our barrels range from anywhere from sweet to smoky to spicy, right? Yeah. So we put aged whiskey in there. But now we've got aged whiskey going into those barrels, so it'll never be double barreled.
Right.
It'll go into that, and we've bought some new make, contracted some new make also from Green River, just for them to put in, for us to distill, and those are going into our barrels. We heavily toast our barrels. Each barrel has a different toast profile,
right?
And we use a #1 char exclusively.
Oh wow!
So on the second maturation.
On the second and the first.
Oh, on the first.
First and second. So we're #1 char all the way across the board.
Really?
Yeah. So, what
are you saying? What about that do you like?
So when we toast the barrels, okay, and this comes from Jim Rutledge or whoever, 70% of the flavor comes from the barrel.
Right.
So what are we doing different to take somebody else's juice and make it ours? We double barrel it. In the barrels, we know what's going to happen, and then we take the contract stuff and what
Mhm.
we're doing off our stuff, and we put it in those barrels. Now we know the profiles that it's going to put on them. So a good example is there's a lot of lignin in oak, and at a certain time, at a certain temperature, lignin actually chemically turns into vanillin, and vanillin's a big component in vanilla.
Right.
So if you see our charts go lignin, 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 boom, and then vanillin shoots through the roof, you stop the process, and you know that barrel is going to influence that whiskey with more vanillin, more vanilla than any other barrel, because we can chemically see that. And so we have 17 different barrels like that pull out different compounds. You're looking at the compounds you're looking for: furfural, eugenol, glycol, 5-hydroxymethylfurfural, and hydroxymethylfurfural. Each one of those compounds has a flavor that they exude. So furfurols are going to be the buttery, nutty, kind of caramely. The eugenols are going to be your baking spices. I think, to me, Maker's Mark has a lot of baking spices in it, so there's going to be eugenol in that. And then glycol would be smoky, bacony, campfirey. So each of these compounds exudes these different flavors. Now, when you toast a barrel and you bring the sugars to the surface, like a tree with a branch cut off,
Right.
you know that the sap goes to heal that wound. When you toast a barrel, the sugars come to the surface. And so, and if you're being in the restaurant business, you know, when you burn sugar, it burns. So you've got these sugars coming to the surface, and then you burn back a char 4, you're burning it back. You're burning the sugars you just brought to the surface.
Right.
So it's counterproductive. And plus a char 1, I mean, it's an exaggeration, but a 4 is like that. A 1 is like this.
Right.
It's easier for our liquid to get through those toasted layers that we've built.
I would assume low entry proof.
Yeah, we're going to do low entry proof on all of it. But then there's once I get behind the real still, there's going to be a lot, low, come off the still at lower proof.
Yeah.
But yeah, low entry proof. We're actually going in at off our still, we're going in at 115.
Oh,
because
wow. I would have thought it'd been a lot lower than that.
Well, we ran it. I did several blind tastes with our white dog, and 2 or 3 times I picked out through nosing and tasting the 115. Cool. That was the best because some of it just had little off tones to it. He would, Ethan Spalding is our distiller down there, and he would set them 125, 115, 100, 90, 80, and 115 kept coming up.
Huh.
And I would love it lower, but that's where the magic, I think, was happening.
I just go figure 100, 103, you're going to get a lot more. It's going to happen a little sooner.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a couple of different camps on that, but
115. That's
cool. I
cool.
mean, it's just where it came out.
That's cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
but so there's a lot of
testing and all that goes on down at Bardstown or at your place or
independent.
Well,
there's a lot of moving parts.
Testing for all the chemicals that you were talking
that goes
about.
on at independent stave company. So we don't do any of that. That's
really?
They're the biggest barrel maker in the world. His job is wood research, and he does wine barrels, whatever. But he just digs into whiskey barrels, and he's like, "These are some cool things that you should look at." And we're a small enough company where we should do that. We can do that.
Oh yeah.
And if a mistake goes wrong, we're not really out that much.
Right.
But there's a lot of data in what we do, and then the art comes from my years of tasting whiskey. And I mean, I can remember one time we were in the lab, it wasn't finishing like I wanted it to do, and he said, "Well, we'll take some of this barrel out, put some of this barrel in." And it finished perfectly. I mean, it was amazing. At that point, I was like, "This is cool." I knew it at that point.
We are dipping in, doing our, been in this business for quite a while, but I've never really had gotten into the blending of it. And once you get into it, you're just continually searching for that ultimate blend. And we're going through it right now where we're doing a little bit of that stuff, and it's just fun, man.
No, it's a good time, but also, like I said, a lot of data and a lot of research into going what we do, and then it's an art of the palate,
The barrel thing is
it's really cool. I heard in an interview that you did with somebody that your favorite one of the favorite, maybe your favorite thing of doing is making the manual cuts.
Oh yeah,
I don't
cutting the
remember what
heads,
that.
hearts, and tails.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
that's still true.
it's fun. Well, I'm not down there all the time.
But I
Ethan,
mean, you're going to get
Ethan
behind the
does it every
still
day.
and down in Barstown, and
Oh yeah. Well, not when we do that. No, we do it on our still, like on a
Little
smaller
pot
scale.
just on
Yeah,
your
we do it
your
on.
second.
We cut it on our
Yeah.
our still.
And you like
Oh,
doing that.
I love doing that.
Yeah.
I love doing it because it's all. I mean, of course, you've got a time and temperature when you should go, but then you're like,
No.
ready yet? No, let it run a little longer. And then it's like, oh, now you can turn it off. So then you cut the heads and hearts and tails. I mean, and we have examples of it down there that you can
smell.
I mean, even a layperson can smell the heads,
Right.
hearts, and tails. And I mean, obviously the tails fade off a little bit, but the heads and hearts are like night and day.
Yeah.
And so that's what's cool about it. It's like, science, it's like, I don't know.
Science meets art.
Yeah.
I would watch Jody down at
Oh, yeah.
Williams do it, and they, like you say, there are times and levers that you can do, but to see him sit on a bucket and
oh man,
make
nothing
that
like it.
change, it's
Nothing
just
like
cool.
it.
I would just sit there and watch him do that. It was just too cool.
It's exciting. And
Yeah, that's fun.
It's an art that's
For sure.
not out there much anymore with the column stills and all that going.
It's cool. That's why so many moonshiners.
Yeah, a lot of that's fully automated. Those
Yeah.
big guys are just fully automated, and you got to kind of go with what you know.
Yeah.
But like I said, we're glad that we if 70% of the flavor comes from barrel, like I said,
Right.
we kind of work backwards, reverse engineered it. Well, if everybody's got kind of the same mash bills they're playing with, I mean, I'm looking at this big scale.
Right.
What makes us different? It's the maturation or the aging process,
Right.
And it
That's
makes
where the
all
difference, I think.
makes all the difference in the
Yeah,
world.
I agree. I think
This
that's how
stuff that
you
we're
set
sipping on
yourself.
today is pretty good.
Yeah, and so that was finished in a French, toasted French oak.
Mm-hmm.
It's
good.
I could, analyze that for days. We could talk about that, but I know we've got other things to talk about.
No, it's good. No, I mean we're wrapping up. So, you got anything else?
I'll throw out a couple names. Give me 3 words to describe a couple people that I throw out. Jim Rutledge, 3 words.
3 words. Wow. Not very good in a classroom setting. I told you this.
Legend?
Yeah, legend. Legend's a good one. Legend's a good one. I would say, legend. Stubborn.
Yeah,
I think that, and I think he would appreciate that.
Yeah,
he's stubborn, legendary, and he's very
confident.
Yeah, no, he's just like to the point. I mean, he is
what
he's a master at what he does.
He does. From the times that I've talked to Jim, sometimes you got to go, bring it back down, because he's here and he's knowing what he's talking about. Yeah. And I'm going, the biology is not, or the whatever, it's not coming back. The chemistry, I should say. He's talking that level, right. And he needs to layman term it down just a little bit. What about Fred No?
Fred No's unbelievable guy.
That's 2 words. So you got one left.
He's got one left.
Only got one left. He's funny. Freddie's great.
I don't know Freddie. I think I've met him one time, but I have met Fred a couple times.
Freddie's great, smart and innovative.
Cool.
Yeah, Freddie's definitely.
So one more, Michael Veach.
Mike Veach is knowledgeable.
Yes.
Kind of a southern gentleman of the history part of bourbon.
Yeah.
And
I was going to throw in Minnick, but I didn't want you to cuss or anything. So.
I've known Fred forever.
I know. We've got to know Fred.
Fred, he's good. He's good people. And Fred's very driven about what he did. I mean, I met Fred when he was getting started. We've had plenty of whiskeys sitting at Bourbons, and I think right when he was starting his career.
Yeah.
And he's done a great job. And he tells it like it is. And doesn't really care. So kind of unfiltered in that sense. But he's done a great job and brought. He's a great
ambassador.
Yeah, ambassador, philanthropic. Brought a lot of people to the category that normally wouldn't be here.
And I'll end with this. Not that you have any time on your plate right now, but have you ever thought about doing a show like this, a very bourbon-centric, restaurant-centric, where you were the host and where you brought?
I would love to do that. One, I know this takes a lot of time to do it every week or to put weekly shows on or monthly shows. And realistically, and my wife says, well, you should do that. Yeah, okay. When? When am I going to do this? And I do some, like somebody will call me and do 4 podcasts on Sunday night, and I do that. And it's like, okay, when am I going to have time to produce this? Plus, it really is. Not to say the space is too crowded, but there's a lot of people, and this is a great podcast here, and not that there might be room for one, but
Yeah,
I don't have the time and effort to make it as good as I would like to make it, have all the people on that I'd want, and I just think to me, that's a huge uphill battle for me.
Yeah.
Plus, to get listeners, not that the information wouldn't be there, not that I couldn't get some of these people on, I just don't think I would have
there's only so
time.
much time
Yeah,
in today, man.
I don't think I have
I get
time
it.
to do that,
I get it.
or I think to me, it seems huge to build that kind of a following.
Well, it's like building a restaurant or
Yeah.
building a whiskey brand, and
Yeah.
you got to build a podcast. It's the same way.
Sure.
You start slow. It takes a while to get people to know
Yeah.
who you are and what you're out there. And
I
all
don't.
that.
I'm still
Yeah.
trying to build this whiskey brand.
Yeah, I hear you.
I don't have a lot of time for that. So.
Well, this was fun, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming
I really
in.
appreciate
This
y'all
was
having
cool.
me.
First guest. That's pretty cool.
I like show number 1's pretty cool.
There you go.
Yeah. Show number 1.
Wow. Yeah, that's great.
Sounds
Anything
good.
else you want to leave us with, or do you think you got it all out of your system?
I mean, we can sit here and talk whiskey for 3 hours and just turn it off.
Sounds good.
No, really appreciate y'all having me.
This is really cool, man.
Yeah.
Cool. A lot of insight.
Well, that'll do it for Jason Brauner on our American Whiskey podcast. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Hey guys, I'm Tommy. This is Josh. We're the owners of Watch Hill Proper. We are the largest American whiskey bar in the world. We're located in Louisville, Kentucky. We'd love for you guys to come out and visit us. We offer, elevated cuisine, great cocktail list, and the wall is what people show up to see.
Definitely can satisfy your palate from standpoint of whiskeys, different bourbons, different flights. You can make your own, but we have wines, cocktails. Michael Crouch is our chef.
I was going to say,
amazing food. So we'd love to have you come out and visit. Join us for dinner. Join us for a tasting. Check us out on the website, watchhillproper.com. You can make reservations. You can see our events that we have on the calendar, and we'd love to have you.